The Bhagavad Gita contains many descriptions of what yoga is. Among them, the journey of the self, through the self, to the self, and my personal favorite, the practice of tolerating the consequences of being yourself. In the Western world, we tend to think of yoga mainly as a form of physical exercise. But yoga asana, the postures, what happens on our mats, is only a small part of the practice of yoga. Like most Westerners, asana was how I came to this practice. I played around with it on and off through my teens and 20s, but it was not until my 30s that I developed a deeper yoga practice. I spent a good portion of my 20s working in the adult industry and struggling with heroin addiction. I was profoundly disembodied from these experiences and practiced disassociation as a means of survival. After I got sober and left the adult industry in 2007, I existed in a kind of limbo until late 2009, when I took my 1-year-old daughter, left my abusive mate, and finally returned to the Northwoods. At first, I experienced great healing just through my writing, but in 2012, I began to battle with self-destructive urges as memories from my 20s surfaced and began to haunt me. At the beginning of 2013, I went to a yoga class where the teacher posed a question for us. How willing are you to give and receive love today? And finally, something clicked. I began the long and often painful process of becoming embodied. I learned to link breath to movement, release long-held tension, and finally, after over 30 years, I actually began to love myself. I did my 200-hour yoga teacher training at Yoga North's International Soma Yoga Institute while pregnant with my son, and it was there I learned yoga is not about attainment or self-improvement. It is a process of subtraction, a stripping away of the attachments, the baggage, the likes and dislikes that we confuse with our core identity, with our quote-unquote big S self. There are 8 limbs of yoga. These 8 limbs give all of us, regardless of religion, race, size, age, or flexibility, a roadmap to freedom. The first 2 limbs of yoga, the yamas, the 5 restraints, and niyamas, 5 observances, form the ethical foundation of yoga. The yamas, nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, non-excess, non-possessiveness, and niyamas, purity, contentment, self-discipline, self-study, and surrender, invite us into an adult relationship with others and with ourselves. They bring us into a process of reflection and observances that shifts as we shift. To quote Deb Adele, these guidelines sit as both a vision of the possibilities of human existence, as well as providing the practical guidance to make skillful, moment-to-moment choices in our daily lives. Nonviolence, called ahimsa, is the first yama and sits as the foundation of all yoga philosophy and practice on and off the mat. Although killing and assault are obvious, grosser forms of violence, ahimsa also addresses more subtle, non-physical forms of violence. We live in a time where we are constantly bombarded with messages that we are not good enough and must look outside ourselves to find completion. We are always searching outside of ourselves and never finding what we truly need. In addition, some of the most violent attacks that we launch are on ourselves through negative self-talk, spreading ourselves too thin, relentless self-criticism, and these acts of unkindness to ourselves spill over into our relationships with those that we love. Ahimsa teaches us that to love others and to treat others with love, we must first learn to give that love to ourselves. Thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. I hope my story has been of service to you. You are a beautiful audience. Namaste.